quite smoky. But I do find that I take a lot more taxis now, if I find myself out too late.
Chryso friends, welcome back to Opus LNI, where we show our cringy pictures of our 19-year-old selves on the internet. I'm actually really excited for today's video. A while ago, I was going through some of my old pictures and came across some absolutely delightful specimens. Some backstory here. I grew up about 3 miles away from the local Renaissance Festival, which wasn't actually a Renaissance festival. It was less a Renaissance thing with Queen Elizabeth and also Robin Hood for some inexplicable reason, and more of a medieval King Arthur inspired fair. So one of the really cool things about the New Jersey Renaissance Kingdom, which no longer exists as an entity, was that it had a progressing yearly storyline. It was an eccentric take on the Arthurian legends, to say the least, with things happening all out of order and characters made up out of whole cloth. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Arthurian mythology, welcome to the club. And I say that as someone who has been studying Arthurian mythos for years. My persona name in the SCA comes from my very favorite modern retelling, The Crystal Cave by Mary Stuart. There are so many legends and so many sources that there isn't really one story that can be considered canon. But one of the elements that is generally seen in the mythos is the idea that King Arthur led a successful defense of Britain against a Saxon invasion. This idea goes all the way back to the late 9th century works of Nennius, but was codified in Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae, or History of the Kings of Britain, in the 12th century. Unlike Arthur, though, the Saxon migration from the Germanic region of Europe to England in the 5th and 6th centuries CE is documentable. So, of course, this notion also eventually showed up in the evolving storyline of the fair, and I, as you may well have guessed from the title of this video, got to be on the Saxon side. So here we have some pictures of my costume. I don't have very many that are full length, so please also accept this artist's rendering of what it all looked like together. I've got 3 layers here: a cream-colored underdress with long sleeves, and an overdress that was sleeveless and only fastened at the side seams from arm side to hip, and a bib front apron. In a couple pictures, I'm also wearing a plaid blanket as a cloak. We were all meant to look sort of mismatched and tattered. And because I was very, very broke, the underdress and apron were both made from cotton gauze, and the brown overdress was a smooth polycotton blend quilting cotton. Quick note on fabric gatekeeping: we don't do that here. As I've gotten older and have access to money, I've started to more closely approximate the kinds of fibers and fabrics that would have been available to people living in the times that I portray, and even now my approximations aren't as close as they could be. This is my personal priority based on what brings me joy. If your priority is being ecologically conscious when you sew, cool. If it's making the most opulent clothing on the smallest budget possible, fantastic. If it's to achieve the highest level of historical fidelity possible in the modern age, great. Do what brings you bliss in this capitalist hellscape. But we don't use our personal priorities to gatekeep others. Where were we? Oh right, I thought this would be a fun exercise to remake this outfit to my current standards of historical adequacy, and also a good excuse to pick up a book I've had on my wish list forever in order to do the research I needed. What did I learn while doing this research? Well, first, everyone go grab your cuppa. Mine is August Uncommon's Golden Arrow. One thing I love about this company is that they have, on their website, they have a tastes like and a feels like for each tea. So this one tastes like walnut, burnt sugar, and mahogany. And it feels like Belle Epoque train travel, which, if that's just not right on brand. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you're drinking, and let's get into it together. The main reference book I used was Dress in Anglo-Saxon England by Gail Owen Crocker, and is pretty much regarded as the gospel of early English material culture. I should take a brief moment here to acknowledge the problematic history of the term Anglo-Saxon, which has become something of a racist dog whistle both in and out of academia. There's a whole big long debate about whether the term was ever useful in the first place, as it's neither accurate nor historical, or whether it's only in the last 100 years or so become too intrinsically associated with white nationalists and jingoists to be redeemable. I'm not gonna get into that. I'll just say what I say on my Viking videos. No Nazis in Valhalla. This is not a safe space for racists and white supremacists. Don't assume that I agree with you, just leave. But the book is titled what it is, and I'm still going to be referencing it because it's a really useful treasure trove of early period English clothing. During the migration era, feminine clothing consisted of an underdress or tunic, presumably long-sleeved, and an overdress like the Roman peplos or stola. The underdress or tunic was likely rectangularly constructed, similarly to other rectangular dresses of early and high medieval Europe. I used a slightly different pattern here with a wider side gores that go all the way up to the sleeve and no front and back gores. This cutting diagram is very conservative of fabric. I can fit this whole dress into 3 yards of 60 inches wide fabric with a little left over for coifs or other small projects. And we can see similar dress construction in the later Greenland finds. This long tunic dress would be worn over a linen smock and most likely would be made of wool rather than linen itself, but again, I live in Austin, not Essex, so linen it is. I chose a natural, unbleached linen, partially because I wanted to keep the neutral look of the original costume while not wearing something that is functionally a smock as a dress. You can see me drawing threads to cut perfectly straight lines for this rectangularly constructed dress using my cutting diagram as a guide. Normally, I don't bother. I'm pretty good at following the fabric grain as I cut lines, but every once in a while, pulling threads is the kind of satisfying that I'm craving. Like much of my wardrobe, this dress will be machine sewn and hand finished. I like to sew the shoulder seams if there are any and then handle the neckline. I don't have a great shot of the original dress collar, but the overdress is a scoop neck, so that's what I'm going with. I'll fell the shoulder seams first, then finish the neckline with a rolled hem instead of a facing, just to cut down on bulk. Once the neckline is done, I'll assemble the rest of the dress in my usual order for this kind of dress: sleeves, gores, underarm gussets, and lastly side seams. After everything has the construction sewing done, I'll give it a quick try on just to make sure that everything is fitting how I want it to. This dress is a little looser through the torso than the kind where the gores start at the waist height, but that's okay. It's super comfy. Next, it's time to fell all the seam allowances down, something I usually do over the course of work meetings and Zoom get-togethers in order to keep my hands busy. To mark the hem, I hung it up overnight and then used my yardstick to mark the edges of the gores to be even with the body hem. Bran, as usual, was incredibly helpful in reminding me that doors are not allowed to be closed, actually. Once the hem is marked, I can trim up that curve and then hem the dress by hand. Stay tuned after this brief commercial break for the overdress construction. Welcome back. It's time to start on the overdress. Like I said earlier, the 5th to 7th centuries of Saxon dress are characterized by a tubular dress similar in style to the Roman clothing of the time. We do run into the same problem with Saxon clothing as we do with Viking. There are just so few extant textile finds to work from, so a lot of recreations are built on the foundations of grave finds, sculpture, paintings, and educated guesses. I'm using a beautiful dark brown medium weight wool I found on sale. Is it probably a bit heavy for this application? Yeah, I should have gone for a suiting weight with more drape to it, but the color was so good and the price was right, and it will make a nice winter layering piece. I'm trimming both sides up so they're nice and straight, and then I will cut it into 2 pieces since I plan to leave the top fold of the peplos area open. After I figure out how deep that top fold is going to be, I'll mark where the side seams should stop. I forgot to snag footage of me sewing the side seams on the machine, so we'll just pretend that I put that clip here. I spent some time felling those seams open rather than just folding them over to one side in order to cut down on bulk. For those of you who missed Bran in the last few videos, please consider this my offering to all of you and an object lesson about what happens when I keep this cat from his adoring public for too long. After I finished that, I hemmed the bottom edge and all around the top fold. I used a running stitch instead of a felling stitch just to help that hem lay flatter even before pressing it at the end. The side seams are felled on the inside of the garment, and the pepose fold is hemmed to the outside so that the hem isn't visible on the outside of the drape. This means that where the side seam ends, I snipped the seam allowances almost completely so that I could fold the hem to the outside and just did a close whip stitch to finish those cut ends. In order to get the proper drape on the front without the neck being too tight or slipping off my shoulders, I marked the back of the fold so it would lay smooth against my upper back, and the front so it had the proper drape. Then I pinned the two marks together with the reproduction Saxon brooches I purchased from Raymond's Quiet Press, and I was all set to go. And here we are, friends. Thank you for sticking around until the end of another project, especially this one that remained unresolved for so long because of tech problems and then the tournament vlog. I hope that it lived up to everyone's expectations. It was really fun to take a stroll down memory lane 20 years later and discover that I wasn't actually as far off from a historical silhouette as I thought I was. I'd love to do some more Arthurian-inspired clothing, whether that's through the lens of mapping the mythical figures to historical eras, or whether that's recreating the Victorian does medieval fantasies of the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Let me know in the comments what kind of Arthurian content you would like to see. I also have a bit of a quandary coming up. In December, my second upload day falls on Christmas Eve. I have a couple of different notions about what I could do for that upload day. I thought of doing a live stream like I've done near the equinoxes, but I have a feeling that everyone is going to be super busy since we live in a country that collectively celebrates Christmas. I could upload a regular length video, either my normal clothing content or something else. Last year around Christmas, I uploaded a full-length non-clothing video and it absolutely bombed. Like, one of my worst performing videos ever. It's Christmas Eve. I'm not actually convinced that any video I upload then is going to do well. I could potentially upload something shorter just to keep the schedule consistent. Some people have asked how I set an underarm gusset, and a mini tutorial might be a good candidate for this. Or I could just skip an upload, but again, I'm hesitant to do that because my last couple of videos also haven't been performing super well, and I don't want to tell the algorithm that I'm uploading erratically. Anyway, feel free to share your thoughts. I'll also probably toss up a poll in the community tab next week, and maybe we can come to some kind of conclusion together. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I upload every other Friday, except maybe Christmas Eve. If you like reminders, ring the notification bell to turn those on. And if you want to find me on other social media, I am at OpusLNI everywhere. I will put all of those links in the description box below, along with a link to my Ko-fi where I post exclusive donor content and have my web shop. Speaking of, thank you all so much for making the release of my Londinium hood a rousing success. Until next time, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Hwyl.